This is Yerushalmi Shabbos in the article Oz V'Har edition. We're mamish at the top of Ayin Hey Amud Aleph, the Kasha, the beginning of the Gemara, and that is in the Vilna on Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, the beginning of the Gemara of Aloch Zayin, the Kasha. So in the Mishnah we had said that Hamoti Kubas HaRochlin, somebody takes out a bundle of a peddler, even as though it has many minim, many different types of perfumes or cosmetics, you only have one chatas. So the Gemara says, is that obvious? Bekasha. Even if you do multiple acts of otzah, if they're done b'halimachas, they're done one prepared forgetfulness, you chayav more than one chatas, you only chayav one chatas. So therefore here too, obviously certainly if you're doing one act, why should we chayav more than one chatos? So my answers, for whom was our mission necessary? Rabbi Elazar. According to Rabbi Elazar, that Rabbi Elazar holds tamchuin and machalkim. He holds that if you took out multiple species and multiple dishes at the same time, since each dish is separate, you're chayav each dish separately. So here too, I might say that each section in the bundle of the peddler is considered to be a separate and distinct totzah. Shotomar minim harbe kelemos harbe. Shouldn't say that many types of species are like they are many helemos. Vilna seems to say be'alemos, but probably should be kelemos as the Meforshim change it. Kelemos harbe v'yechayv kol achas v'achas. You chayv in each and every one. Fum kein tzorich l'meimar ein chayv v'achas. That's but tell us that no, you only chayv one on the chatas on the entire bundle. Okay, is your onegina pachas mi mikogeres? On the Mishnah it said if you take out garden seeds which are not suitable to eat, so then the shear is not a grogeres. The shear is a certain amount of seeds. So Rabbi Yehuda Meseir Omer Chamisha, Rabbi Yehuda Meseir had said 5 seeds. My time with Rabbi Yehuda Meseir, why? What's the source of Rabbi Yehuda Meseir? So this goes back to what we learned earlier in Masechta. That is the amount of seeds which you can plant in a patch of 6 by 6 tvachim. So that is the since that is the what you can plant there. So therefore, that is considered to be a significant amount of seeds, even though that was talking about separate species and talking about even the same species. But that gives it significance. The fact that you can plant 5 different species in one patch means that 5 seeds is a significant amount of garden seeds. Zerkishu and Beis, if we had said in the Mishnah that if it was squash seeds, 2, Zerdlu and Beis, gourd seeds, 2, Zerpulamitzi Beis, Egyptian bean seeds, 2, Tani Chitim Madayos Shtayim, the wheat which comes from media, they also the shear is 2. Mishmur V'Shem Rav Zir said Chita Desh Chavivos. Why is that? Evidently, these are seeds which are not edible, despite the fact that they're wheat seeds. So the I take that back. I really want to say that, but it's not true. These are wheat seeds. The shear should be the size of krogeris, right? Why is it 2 seeds? So he says chitin aidesh and chavivos because they are so significant. I guess because they are the main food stuff in the world. Also, some gesharas they made them like gina like the Korban Eidah says. Even though it doesn't have a grogeres, not close to grogeres, they made them nevertheless significant, like gourd seeds or pumpkin seeds. Okay, the Mishnah said Chagav Chai, a live grasshopper, which here it's a locust really, as we'll see in a moment because it's kosher. Koshu, no matter how small it is your chayiv. Makes grogeres. If it's dead, it's the shear of a grogeres. So that's Torah. That's about a kosher locust, where it's a foodstuff once, even if it's dead. But a tame locust or grasshopper, which is not edible to human beings, because it's treif. It's the amount you give to a dog to eat. There, that's would be considered dog food. Tziporas kramim, ben chaya ben mesa koshu. Tziporas kramim, whether it's alive or dead, the shear is a koshu. because Shavatzin also l'refuah. It's used not just for food, it's used also for, in which case the shear would be Kalopi Adam, Kalopi Kel, depending if it was a kosher or non-kosher bird. But since it's used for refuah, even if it's dead, so therefore the shear is a kosher because for refuah, evidently a minute amount is sufficient. Rabbi Yachra said she can isha setifa. The Moshe says a woman she yesh ketoyim bekoyim befaneh who has cracks in her face, some sort of skin condition. Mustafos breish mayu, something which has cracks in it. It says here mosheches with a chaf, but probably should be mosheches with a ches. Same idea. In any event, she pulls it, she spreads it. Mimena being misrapa, she gets healed. Talmud Amrin. They said, Bavel, man the boy nifosh miderech eretz. Somebody who wants to separate himself from the manners of this world. Two pshatim carbonator. Mishos ifrosh mi iskeil and lios chacham b'Torah. So he wants to separate himself from matters of this world and become a sage in Torah. Inami shos shlo yisavel enoshim. He wants to eliminate his desire for women. And the Pnei Moshe goes like the second shot. Interesting shot, the first one. Achil palga. He eats half of the tipur akramim, and Shavi palga, and he leaves half of it over. Shel small, it is the left half. The left half. It says here asur. Shel you mean mutar. The left half is osur. The Korban Eder says it's sakana, and the right half is mutar. It's not a sakana, but the Moshe says it's also because it causes you to become barren, and the right side doesn't cause you to be barren, evidently. But the Melech Shlema has a girsa shel small oser. The left side, not is oser, but eliminates your taiva. V'shel yamin mut matir, and the right side restores your taiva. About koshu, if you lose any part of it, evidently of the right side of it, chaser koshu, or this is going like Shleima's girsa here. Of a koshu, chaser koshu, if you lost part of it, if it's missing a part of it, this half, the right half which is matir, and takana lamis, there's no way to reverse the initial effect of the tzipor akramim. Ketzerose, well, not quite. So although Ketzerose usually mean what's the takana to if you did lose it, but the Pnei Korban Eder says, what the Pnei Moshe seems to say the same thing. That what do you do in order to make sure you don't lose any part of that right half, which is going to be matter you? Rabbi Sabun, you have a goat slochis devash. You put it into a plate full of honey, and that preserves it, and then it's intact, and therefore you have it. And you'll be able always to reverse the process, which happened when you ate the left side. The right side would be intact for you to reverse, fully intact for you to reverse that process. Okay, we call for a Mishnah. You take out a a live non-kosher locust grasshopper. So the shear is a kosher. So the inference is hatar, that's only if it's tameh, if it's not kosher. But tar ben chai ben meis kigogeres. Then whether it's alive or dead, the sugar because it's food stuff. Rabbi Yehuda, and this is Rabbi Yehuda, according to his opinion, the Rabbi Yehuda Omer El Klin Torim Ein Masachim Bain. You don't play games with kosher food, so it's only considered to be a toy if it's a chagav tomei. So Gemara asks, how can you say it's also to play with food? V'aksiv hat tisachek bo katzipor. It's a Paskin Iyov which talks about the Livyasan, and it says, will you play with Livyasan the same way you play with a bird? Now, most of the Farshim learn that the next Shaklatar is going on the Livyasan, but I think it's According to the Lashon Gemara, I think it's going on the bird itself. So the question is, you see a bird you're allowed to play with. Not the libyosam, the bird. The bird you're allowed to play with. That's like a boket tzipor. Says Gemara, lo time miklal isru. No, it's not permitted. It's not permitted. It's a mushal. Saying, some people play with birds, but that doesn't mean you're allowed to play with a bird. Some people play with birds. Says you're going to play with it like a bird, like some people play with a bird. Says Gemara, nothing doing. Vaksiv katzipor. Right? It says they're going to play with it like a bird. It's not. You can't say that a bird is asur and then bring a mushal from it. You're saying that the bird is permitted, and you're going to say, can you play with the leviasan like you would play with a bird? So the Amray time says, you know what? You're right, but this is the difference. Anything which is chaser shchita is like it's tameh. In other words, that which you would say you're not allowed to play with food is food which is not chaser shchita. Chagav doesn't have to be shechted. By the way, Libyasan has to be shechted either, so if the Gemara was going to Libyasan, it'd be a little bit difficult. But in any event, what he's saying is that a bird does require shchita. So any animal which, while it's alive, it's a mechusa shchita, you're allowed to use as a even though it's a kosher animal, you're allowed to use as food, as a toy. I'm sorry, allowed to use a toy. It's only an animal which doesn't require shchita, which would be a locust or a fish, that you will not be allowed to play with it. Well, it's alive because it's already considered food. You're not allowed to play with food, but the bird, yes. So that's again. The Gemara's question was, "Foxy has the but you're going to play? Are you going to play Libyasan like a bird?" And it sounds like a bird is what to play with. Has more low time to Israel? No, it's still us to play with. Just a mushal. Says more Foxy katsi por. It's like a bird, so it sounds like a bird you're allowed to play with. So every time it came Shmuchzer Shchita Kitmeh, against it's Shmuchzer Shchita, it's like Tameh, and therefore you're allowed to play with it, but not an animal which is not a living creature which is not Shmuchzer Shchita. Okay. Hajjala Perak Kiva. Hamatzniya. Halacha Aleph. Hamatzniya, somebody who puts away a certain amount of seeds, even as Korban says, Chitim Usorim, Lezera. In other words, you're put away specifically for planting, ledugma, or for a sample to show that people want to buy, l'refuah, or for medicinal purposes. But see, Shabbos, and you take on Shabbos, chayav labachoshu, you're chayav no matter how small the amount is. Even though normally share for food stuff is a grogeres, since you were matzniya for these specific purposes, you're chayav that amount. So, of course, we said earlier, they're special. Because their chavivas are always the shear is less of grogeres, not just for your matzniya them, but these are talking about, I guess, normal kernels of grain of wheat. Any other person is only chayiv according to the normal shear, which is the grogeres or whatever else the shear would be. So it says the person who put them into for safekeeping, even though they're less than a shear, and Votzion, he took it out. And if later on he decided he's not going to plant them, and brought them back in, is not chayav with this achnasa, and can he shear sholim. Unless he has a complete shear of the gogeres. Since he changed his mind, not going to plant them, beat them and negates his first thought. He's like any other normal person. So the Gemara says, and according to the Nir and the Yerushalmi Kipshuta, we're going specifically back on what it says here in the Mishnah, L'dugma. So L'dugma, we said, you're chayav l'bakoshu. So Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi China, boy, he wanted to say, he asked, who wanted to say, we're going either way, Masnisin Rabbi Yehuda. Since our Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Umar Musa Chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says that an Uman, a craftsman who takes this, the first parak, craftsman takes that according to his craft is Chayiv. In other words, here, L'dugma, only the craftsman, a peddler, whoever it is, takes out that small amount, L'dugma. And that is, Meir would disagree with that. And Meir holds that even a craftsman is only chayav if he takes out a normal shear. So that would this our mission, which is Mechayiv you Dugma, even for a small amount, that's going like Rabbi Yehuda. It's Tai Basar and Meir would agree by Zera Refuah. There doesn't argue. The whole question was whether a craftsman can have his own unique shear or not. Rabbi Yehuda says yes, and Meir says no, but couldn't Rabbi Meir also be moided to, even though it argues by Uman, he would agree with Zera and Refuah. Asya, the Asa Rabbi Yehuda, Pasi B'Shem Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi China said, he confirmed that, yes, Rabbi Yehuda, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara goes on to say, Rabbi Yossi, Lo Asi El Dugma Shkvar Nispayis Lokech. It's only going on with Dugma where the customers already agreed. So what's going on? So it's very important to read Baz here. It's going to the end of the Mishnah. It says, if you put it back in, it's going on Dugma. Since when you took it out to Lokech, you're doing business on Shabbos, evidently. You took it out for your Lokech on, and he was agreed to buy your wares. Before you brought it back in. Therefore, when you brought it back in and they were motzi again, you only chayav going to shear. Because Lokech was already agreed, and therefore your purpose of taking dugma no longer applies. But by zera and fuah, you're chayav b'koshu no matter what. Even if they would take it back in, because there's no such thing as the transaction is complete. You can always serve for zera refuah subsequently. So therefore, even when you take it back in, it still has that zera and refuah quality to it, and you're still going to be chayiv in less than a shear. So shittas bavil of an achra and sham saikav on base. Bavil is a different interpretation. Yerushalmi Shabbos adds a nice thing. He says, even though Rabbi Yosef said, Rabbi Yehuda said previously in Perechas Halacha Beis that by a kesher moichsin or a star chov, which has already been paid up, your chayev, even you already used it, you already showed it to your tax collector or to your creditor or your debtor. Nevertheless, by a whatever the debtor takes out a second time. Nevertheless, by dugma you're potter. Why? Because by dugma, not necessarily going to use the same dugma over again. You'll show another dugma of that schora of that merchandise next time around. Suppose the star or the kesher moichsin, you want to show that specific one to show that you're a person who pays his taxes or a person who pays back the loans. And if you have other stars, this one has its own specific purpose in order to show that you're a trustworthy person. So therefore, its significance is not erased after the transaction is over. The dugma could always be use another one. The kesher moichsin, the star choiv, not necessarily. Okay, so our going on the case in our Mishnah, the Gemara says, if this guy is put this away for safekeeping, this smaller shear, and somebody else is motzi it, the smaller shear, the second guy's potter. And Shimon says no, the second guy's chayiv on the basis of the first person's safekeeping it. Manakayim, we're going to tell you about it. If the second guy is taking out on his own das, on his own on his own perspective, so to speak, everybody's potter because he wasn't matziyah. He doesn't find chashivas in this year. If he's doing it on the basis of the das of the first person, in other words, he's saying, "Oh, whatever this person found significant for me, chayiv." The definition should be chayiv because first amount is significant. Ella kana and the you're talking about the second guy has no independent das, right? So he didn't have his own thoughts. And he either like to have his own independent das or to do it on the basis of the first guy's das. So we assume that the second guy does it on his own, according to his own parameters, his own perspective, and therefore he's potter because first guy's has nothing to do with him. No, the second guy who taking out the stuff which the first guy set aside, he must be doing it according to the das of the first guy, and therefore who was machshibit, and therefore the same guy is chayiv. Halacha base. Hamotzi ochim nasa asko, but somebody takes that food and puts them on the threshold. The ben shechazav otzion, whether he took them out, in other words, he put in the threshold, then picked up again and moved them to the outside. Ben shechazav, whether he went up and took them up and took them out. Ben shechazav acher, when somebody else picked up from the threshold, took it out, potter. He didn't do his malacha in one activity. So because the akira was in Makom Chiyuv, was in the which is the Yachid, the hanocha was in Makom Chiyuv, which is a rabbim, but the askopa is a carmelis. Okay, so it's not considered to be neither Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah, and therefore there was no akira hotzon hanocha bebasachas. Kuba Milea Peros. You have a basket which is full of fruits. And it's put onto the on the outer threshold, which is still a caramelis. Abi Shurova Peros Bachutz. Even though most of the fruit in the basket is already outside, is outside. It's a large basket. Part of the basket isn't Rishus Rabim. So the Chari did Otzah from Rishus Rabim. No. You're exempt until you take the entire basket out, meaning unless the entire basket was removed in Rishus Rabim, it's not considered to be that you did the malacha of Hotzah. So that's more Chizkiah Amar, but it's not so simple. There's only talking about where it's a basket which is full of squashes and gourds, which are long vegetables. So therefore, some of the food is still in the caramelis, of the same gourd, the same squashes in the caramelis, and some of it is outside. So it's not fully outside. But if it's full of smaller fruit, so then, once the grogeres of the fruit in the basket, even though it's all one basket, once the grogeres of that fruit in the basket is outside, in other words, the apple or whatever it is, which is the shear of grogeres, 2 apples, whatever the point is, it's completely outside, you're chayiv. They say, Milsa Rabbi Yochanan Pliga. It seems Rabbi Yochanan argues in that. You have a sarud, which is a like a mixing bowl. Part of it is inside, and part of it is outside. If you took something from within the basket, which is inside, and kept it in the basket and put it outside, you're potter, even though now technically you put in the part of the basket which is outside, which is a rabbin. Im akro achiakro kulo ka'achas. If you uprooted it, you have to uproot the entire basket. So it sounds like he argues even the small fruit inside the basket is outside in Rosh Hashanah. You still didn't do a Maisa Akira. So he seems to argue on Chizkiah. Okay, so I was going to answer this question, but we're already on Ayin Vav and Rav, so we'll leave that for tomorrow.